Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 4. Its member is me, myself, Tasya, Lavinska, Agustin, and Ariski Rahman. So our topic today is Experiential Metafunction. Just come to the next slide. Experiential metafunctions offers us resources to encode our experience of the world to convey a picture of reality. We know that the clause gives information about what is happening, who is taking part, surrounding circumstances. For example, where, when, how, and etc. Building up a clause. In a clause, it consists of participant, process, and circumstances. For example, John and Gladys are standing in the room. John and Gladys are the participants. Are standing is the process, and in the room is the circumstance. How to determine the participants, processes, and circumstances. Participants relies by nominal groups. Processes relies by verbal groups. Circumstances relies by adverbial group, prepositional phrase, and nominal groups. So we have 6 kinds of process. They are material, mental, verbal, behavioral, existential, and relational. Process connect participant and their circumstances. Material processes. Harry bowels. Relational processes. Paul has a big belly. Mental processes. Alice feels proud. And verbal processes. Sisters chat. Material processes indicate physical action. For example, children skip, Mike hit the ball, the dog chased the cat under the fence. So the red color is the physical actions: skip, hit, and chase. Participants' roles in material process. So we have actor, goal, range, and beneficiary. Diana went to Geneva. She carried the bomb. They were playing tennis, and they gave me a car. You can determine it by looking at the color of the word. Mental processes express thoughts of feelings. For example, the diver felt nervous. Mr. Harris wondered if the fish would bite. He believed that he was telling the truth. So the word in the red color is the thoughts or feelings. Participants' roles, mental processes. So we have sensor and phenomenon. For example, I saw Marisa this afternoon. Peter doesn't believe in God. I as the sensor, Marisa as the phenomenon. Peter is the sensor and God is the phenomenon. Projecting. Mental processes, except those of perception, always projection. There's 2 ways of projecting. First is by quoting. For example, I thought I would go and give blood. Or by reporting. I thought that I'd go and give the blood. So the word and the blue color is projected clauses. Verbal processes to talk about what was said. For example, gold, gold, shouted the prospector. Shouted the prospector. The girls chat on the way home. Rhonda screamed at the dog to be quiet. So that's to talk about what was said. Participants' roles in verbal processes. So we have sayer, receiver, and verbiage. I tell him the truth. I make you questions. You can determine it by the color. So just come to the next slide. How to projecting. Verbal process allows projections by quoting and by reporting. By quoting or direct speech. For example, I say, can you avoid this car's tissue? Or by reporting in direct speech. I ask them to avoid this car's tissue. So, go to the next slide. Behavioral processes indicate psychological and physiological activity. For example, the baby cried for hours. The woman was laughing loudly. He smiled a broad smile. Participants' roles in behavioral processes. We have behavior and behavior. The baby cried for hours. The baby is the behavior. It's the participant. He smiles a broad smile. He's the behavior. A broad smile is behavior. Most behavioral processes have only one participant or behavior. Behavioral processes often occur with circumstantial elements of manner and cause.
So here I would like to continue the presentation about existential processes. So existential processes, this represent that something exists or happens. For example, you can see in the screen there are two children under the tree. So there here represent something that exists in the sentence. Okay, next we move to the existential verbs. So in this existential verbs is a verb in English grammar that can be used with existential there. Existential could be, for example, there is, there are, there was, there has been, and etc. It is also possible to use exist in a sentence like there exists, there existed, there have existed, and etc. And then next we move to the relational processes. In these processes indicate states of being or having something. You can see an example, it is windy today. Mr. Taylor has a broken leg. So is here, or maybe we can say to be here, represent the processes, especially in relational processes or having something. And then participants' role in relational processes divided into two types. The first is attribute processes and the second is identifying processes. So the first attribute processes is a process of giving attribute to a thing. And the participant should contain a carrier and attribute here. For example, you are very skinny. You here represent the carrier, are very represent the process, and skinny represent attribute. The second one is identifying processes. So identifying processes is a process of giving a value to a thing, and the participants should contain token and value. For example, you are the skinniest one here. You here represent the token or represent the process, and the skinniest one here represent the value. Oh yeah. Remember that identifying have types. There are be, equality, signification, representation, indication, and etc. And the next is participants. Participants are the people, things, places, or ideas participating in the process being spoken or written about. Participants may be categorized as human, non-human, concrete, abstract, specific, and non-specific. And then participants are represented by noun groups. The five wonderful Liangon singers. This is the example. So here it is a determiner for especially the article, and the numerative here represent five. Describer wonderful describe the subject, and then classifier Yangon. Yangon is classifier, and thing singers. So singer here is a thing.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ariski Rahman, and I will continue the presentation. Circumstance. Circumstance refer to how far, how long, how often, when, where, with whom, and at what intervals. Circumstance are realized through prepositional phrase and verbial group. Circumstance is information about how, when, where, or why process takes place and can be put by prepositional phrase. Prepositions are part of this indicate relationship between words. Usually, this relationship is expressed in terms of biases can begin to use the example. There was a start in my book. Set up with my tail keluar ke dia after hours. Next, discussion the information about how, when, where, how often, and to what degree process takes place and can be reversed by external group. Here's the example. Next, discussion the information about where and when process takes place and can be reversed by group. This is the example. Next is nominalization. Nominalization is the change of a process to participants. Example is rain fell heavily